Let's get into it. So we want to talk about building a pipeline for 2025, but before we do so, I want to catch up with you in front of 100 people. Just
Sure.
like talk to us about curators. So, I mean, you and I, for those of you who don't know, myself and Amy, Big Dave, like a lot of you on this call, Anthony, we know each other from the curator world.
Yeah.
Jimmy, in my opinion, what Jimmy and Chris did was they organized collaboration in a
hmm
way that allowed agents to be in a world where I was doing Facebook ads, and so they highlighted that. Amy was doing YouTube videos, they highlighted that. And that was kind of the world of Curator, backed by some really cool technology of let's just bring together some of the best agents in the industry, regardless of company affiliation, and let's encourage them to collaborate and learn from each other. So Jimmy, Curator was started in 2012, 13.
2012. Yeah, we were
Well,
we were now going on our 13th year before I sold my stake in the business. It's a anytime you build a business, I was 26 years old when I started the company. And anytime you start a business with your first commercial success, your identity and yourself becomes kind of so intertwined in it. Many people on this call probably know me from Curator, or when they think of Curator, they think of me. And that's both a gift and a curse. When things are going well, you feel great. When things are going sideways, it affects you personally. And I got great advice early on from a guy named Jerry Colonna, who is famously worked with Flatiron Ventures with Fred Wilson, one of the best venture capital firms in the world. And he talked about this idea that if you're trying to build a business, just recognize that if you do not separate those two things, it's going to become increasingly harder for you as an individual to find fulfillment in life. And so I'm incredibly proud of the business that we had built, but we hit a point, Joe, where speaking candidly, I had a vision of the future, the team had a different vision of the future, and it wasn't dramatic. It was just a matter of saying, it was time for something to change. And
mm,
and for me personally, I wanted to make the transition in my career. I'm going to be turning 40 next year. I wanted to make the transition in my career to go from being a business owner to an owner of businesses. And one of the
mm,
people that I love, people who I admire and follow, who I just can't get enough of, is this um, business coach. Her name's Dr. You guys should all check her out if you haven't seen her, Dr. Julie Gertner on X. And she is, in my opinion, at the forefront of thought leadership in business. And she kind of provides sort of the safe haven for really ambitious people who don't feel normal, meaning that the way that ambitious people operate is we work really hard, we swing big, we take big risks, we use our gut and our instincts, and oftentimes it goes in complete conflict with the way that most people think about businesses. Most people think about businesses like this: let's all collaborate on a decision to make a decision, but that's not really how big businesses and great businesses are built. They're usually built on going against the grain. And so Dr.
right.
Julie Gardner had this great line that I wrote down when I heard it, and it's something I sort of use as my call it North Star, which is play bigger. And
Mm.
this idea of thinking to myself, how can I play bigger? How can I do more? How can I have a bigger impact for more people? And so, as probably many people on the call know, we started a Curator 12 years ago. We put $400 into that business, and I think we just broke $100 million in lifetime revenue, which is
Wow.
laughable, right? Because that was, we were all like, man, that'd be great if we could make $100,000 a year. That was our North Star. So it's laughable to think that, how far we've gone. And then, this past year, in the last 6 months or so, we've built this incredible business called Listing Leads, which is the sort of first business of many businesses I'm starting, which has become the fastest growing membership site in real estate history. I mean, it's exploded. We have now, thousands and thousands of members who subscribe to that program, and I just want to have a big impact, Joe. And so wherever
Yeah.
that presents itself, that's going to be my focus.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot to unpack there. I shared Julie's it's so hard to not say Twitter profile.
I
I
know.
shared
Yeah.
Julie's X profile. Um so you and I have talked about this before. When I got into real estate, the National Association of Realtors tagline on all of their marketing and advertising was "We are realtors. Real estate
hmm
is our life." And it
hmm
was just so hard for me to identify with that because my life was so much bigger than the job and the career I was building in real estate. And so you're
Sure.
saying like the challenge of the entrepreneur is how does Jimmy, in a sense, build something massive with Curator, but also not be labeled as just the Curator guy? And how
Sure.
does Jimmy separate himself as an entrepreneur who's going to build massive businesses from the massive business he already built? And I think agents can probably relate to that, where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we feel pigeonholed into the thing we do really well. Angie Lauer's on this call. She's the best lead conversion specialist I know. And
Yeah.
now she's in the role of helping us run our team. And so
Yeah.
it's like, how can she be known not just as a massive deal closer, but also a great leader? And how do we
Mm-hmm.
not get pigeonholed into the into these things we do? Like, Jimmy, you know this. I get calls all the time from team leaders who are like, hey, two things. A, my team's killing it, and Real Trends recognizes this every year. And B, I'm broke. Like, so
Yeah,
then there's
sure.
that separation of like, okay, you're running a business that everyone thinks is the greatest business that ever existed, and you have no money. And it's like,
Yeah.
so there's always this need for separation, right? And like, sometimes I think we get trapped inside of our own perceived success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's, go ahead.
Well, no, just to jump in there, I think you brought up a really important point. This industry, the work that you all do, it's too hard to be broke. Meaning that if you're working 40, 60, 80 hours a week as an agent serving your clients and you're not making a living that can create opportunity for you and your loved ones, then something is fundamentally broken with your business. And I think this is an opportunity, especially this time of the year. We got 44 days left in 2024. There is never a better time to reinvent yourself than
Right.
at the end of a year or the beginning of a year. And so I think, Joe, what you're shining a light on is this idea that it's okay and it's natural. And in fact, it's very unnatural to sort of say stagnant. It's natural to evolve and reinvent yourself. And that sometimes means burning down the thing that you have built. And that's a very difficult thing. And I'll give you a quick pro tip on this. One of the things that Jim Collins used to use as a measure of whether or not to hire somebody, he'd say, knowing what you know now, because everyone's afraid of firing somebody. Let me back up for a second.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
afraid of
Yeah.
firing somebody on their team. And so firing is a really big decision. Most people talk to spend way too much time planning, thinking about firing somebody before they actually do. And they're like, I wish I just did it earlier. So Jim Collins, author, Good to Great, and also quick aside within my aside, he wrote one of my favorite books called How the Mighty Fall, which is everyone should read that over the break here.
Mm.
But great title. So he says, if you turn a hiring decision or a firing decision into a hiring decision, it becomes a lot simpler, which is knowing what I know now, would I hire that person? And I think you can apply that same logic to the way in which you run your business. Knowing what I know now, would I build my business the way it is today? And if the
Right.
answer is categorically no, then guess what you should do? Like you should rebuild it in the vision that you have. And I want to give people permission to do that because in the world that we operate, I think that legacy thinking is what drowns and sucks all of our energy, Joe, that causes us to be in a position where the work becomes a grind is the point.
Right. So, sorry about that. You said something that I really loved. So there was a period of time, Jimmy, where I was grinding at CrossFit, and
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay keeps sharing her screen. Alyssa, I don't know if we could disable that, but and I said to my wife, like, I am working too hard to be this fat. Like, it's the same thing, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental problem was not the work I was putting into the gym, it was the food I was putting into my mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to be honest with myself and just go, like, all right, cool. I know I'm getting up every morning and working out, but I'm using that getting up every morning and working out as a license to just eat like a complete maniac. And so
Yeah,
then I'm
sure.
not getting any net gain because
Mm-hmm.
yes, I burned calories this morning and yes, I consumed probably more calories than I burned, but it's
Sure.
all this like excuse wheel that I'm like, well, I'm grinding so I can afford to eat this pizza. And it's just like every day was the same. One of the sad moments of my life was when I went to Dunkin' Donuts
Mm-hmm.
and the
That was your
lady
first
that had,
mistake.
oh, dude. and out of Boston, Massachusetts, and handed me my donuts and said, "See you tomorrow." And the problem wasn't that she said, "See you tomorrow." The problem was she was right. She
Yes.
really would see me tomorrow. So here's the thing, Jimmy, how then does the entrepreneur face the reality? Like how were you honest enough with yourself to go like, dude, I love Curator and I'm
Sure.
grateful for what I built and I'm proud of it. And
Yeah.
I've got to be more and I've got to do more and I've got to build. How how would you advise a real estate team owner or an agent heading into 2025 to give themselves the courage to be honest enough to go like, okay, I'm known for this thing
Hmm.
and this thing is not succeeding at the level I want it to, or I'm not passionate about. So there's a pivot. How does someone find that honesty?
Yeah, there's one really, really simple way to think about this. I think the guy's name was Roger Bannister. He was the first person to break the 4 minute mile.
Right.
And up until that point, scientists believe that it was physically impossible to run
Your
a
heart would
mile.
explode.
Your
Yeah.
heart would explode within if you
Yeah.
try to run four. He ran like 3 minutes and 58 seconds or 56 seconds, something like that. And so he was the first guy. And as soon as he broke the 4 minute mile, all of a sudden, a bunch of other
Everybody else
world
could. Yeah.
class athletes started breaking the 4 minute mile. And so you gotta find out in your network who's breaking the 4 minute mile. And if no one around you is really pushing and really ambitious, then you got to find a different group to hang out with and a different group to associate
Mm.
yourself with. And that's a really challenging thing to say because you love the people you work with and you love the people that you associate with. But I'm very opportunistic when it comes to who's the person who's where I want to be and how do I begin to ingest what they're putting out there or associate myself with them. And I'll give you a real world example of this past, I've known Tom Ferry for 10 years. And over the last 3.5 years, I had a chance to work with him really closely. Over the last 2 years, we've traveled to, 50 plus cities together. And the thing that people don't know about Tom Ferry that I love is first off, he's a much kinder person than people realize. I've seen that guy go out of his way to help so many people. I keep telling him like, you're way too nice to people. I'm like, this is crazy. And it's the real deal. But the other thing I noticed is I saw how he operates. He's a successful entrepreneur in the space. He's built an incredible business. He's the most well-known person in real estate. There's no one even close second, in my opinion. And I just see how he operates. He is the greatest connector. He is the greatest facilitator. He's constantly trying to figure out how to help this industry move forward. Now, whether you like his coaching style or not, you have to respect his game. And I think that's what when I started surrounding myself with people like him and Dr. Julie Gerner and people in the software space like Patrick Campbell, who just sold his business for $300 million. And, like I just started running with the faster group, and that made me faster. And so I was the
Right.
slowest person in that group, but I had to keep up. And so I would say for everyone who's listening to this is like if you're not where you want to be, then it might be an opportunity to join another running club. And that's
Mm.
okay. But that's one thing that I would be thinking about in your position, because I think it's what really smart people try to do is they're always looking to surround themselves with ambitious people who are trying to push themselves forward.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about 2025.
Hmm.
There are multiple agents in this world, but really there's two types. Um, I've been describing the future of real estate as great and terrible, and I don't know that there's anything in between. Like there are agents that are killing
Yeah.
it, and like just truth be told, like Taylor and I are more successful now than we ever have been, and I'm optimistic, and I like we're building so many big things, and we're running multiple companies, and like so 2025 is going to be great. And then, like I said, I talked to people who are like, hey man, I'm breaking even at best. And like, to be honest, I'm
Hmm.
kind of losing. So talking about building a pipeline, no matter what business you run, there has to be some sort of systematic approach to having a future. Because if
Hmm.
my business is purely, I hope people at the gym come up to me like they used to because I have a Remax shirt on and say to me, hey, you're a realtor. I think I need to sell my house. Like, that's not a business plan. Like, but
Yeah.
sadly, it worked. right? Like I can't tell you how many times over the last not 2 years, but preceding that, it was like I would be stretching at the gym and somebody's like, "Hey man, I think I need to sell my house." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we got you." And then 60 days later, we would have sold their house for 600,000 and helped them buy one for 9. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be a business model, especially moving forward. So what are some things that people should be considering as far as building a pipeline heading into 2025?
Well, there's first and foremost, I think that I'm going to go on record saying I think 2025 is going to be the best year we've had in 3 years. Experts forecast interest rates will be in the high fives. We'll see where that lands, but we are expecting a significant rise in the number of transactions in 2025 than we did in the previous 3 years. So I think we're going to see a pretty significant bounce back, so long as things remain stable across North America. So I think there should be a lot of optimism going into next year because I think
So
that
boats are going to rise just because we're going to be doing more deals.
we like a lot of people like to make the comparison saying 2022 and 3 were not like the global financial crisis, and they're right, except in one very important way they're wrong, which is in during the global financial crisis of 2008 and 9, well, late 7, 08 and 09, we saw home values come down quite significantly, especially in some of the areas like Florida and Phoenix and Vegas,
Vegas.
right?
Yeah.
And the coastal communities. But we also saw a massive depression as it relates to the number of transactions. We went from 6.3 million to somewhere around 4.2 million. Well, we saw the same thing happen, except home prices didn't go down
Without the price drop, right?
without the price drop. We saw the same thing happen without the price drop. So we've been in a transaction recession for the last 3 years, not a
Mm.
housing recession. And okay. And so I think we're going to be bouncing back from that in a significant way. So there are three things that I think about as a marketer, which is first, you've got to be this is an unpopular opinion, but money does basically solve all things in this industry, which is
Well, so I
nobody,
tell my kids that I'm like, listen, marriage is hard.
yeah.
It's a little bit easier if you have money. So
It's
it's like
I
we
mean,
don't want to say that money makes things easier, but
it
money
does.
makes things easier, right?
It does. It
A
does.
little bit,
It's a top. Yeah, it's the top of the champagne tower. And
right?
so if you pour more money in, you can get more time back to do the things that you love to do,
Right.
which may be doing more work or spending time with your loved ones, or if you're Anthony Malfronte on the call, golfing and going to Grateful Dead concerts. So the idea here is, I think when it comes to marketing, I think we have to dramatically increase the output we have as it relates to the stuff that we're doing to grow our awareness in our local areas. And there are three different types of marketing you can do. You can do attraction marketing, and this is creating, let's say, content on social media, video, Instagram, TikTok, that builds your audience. You can do engagement marketing, which is creating marketing campaigns that provide some value to the audience that you've built. Or
Right.
you can do conversion marketing, which is using offers and questions to get people to opt in to make the cash register ring. And if you think about your business, am I doing attraction marketing, which is I'm trying to grow my audience? Am I doing engagement marketing? I'm trying to, basically build a deeper relation with my existing audience, or am I doing conversion marketing, which I'm trying to get people to raise their hand? You realize that every day you can be doing one of those three things, if not all of those three things. And it becomes this compounding effect within your business. And so I would say we'll get into some specific tactics here in a second, Joe. I think the really important thing is, if I'm an agent on this call listening, or I'm a team leader, the way I think about this is like, I use an expression internally with the people I work with, which is more champagne, more glasses. And what that means is I want to grow, I want to be creating better marketing campaigns. That's the champagne. And I want to be growing my distribution channels. That's the glasses. And so I want to figure out ways to, how do I differentiate myself and create great marketing that attracts people to me? And then how do I get that in front of more people and more people and more people? And if you can do that really well, there's this magical moment where, an email that you would have sent 2 years ago that maybe got one reply gets 17. A video you shot on social media that maybe get 3 likes, one from your mom, all of a sudden gets, 350 and 6 DMs. And
Right.
so that type of kind of consistent investment in your brand, more champagne, more glasses, creates this incredible compound effect, and this is important because this is the entire ball game team. It drives down your customer acquisition costs.
Right.
And I mean, if there's everyone has a million metrics they track, the one they really should track is how much does it cost me to acquire a customer? And can I invest in channels that can scale? Like that's
well, and I talk about that a lot. Everybody's obsessed. Everybody's obsessed with looking at lead cost or customer acquisition cost and omitting conversion rates. It's like you have to understand both, because if you can spend $50 per customer and have a 5% conversion rate, you can make money.
Yeah.
If you're spending 500 per customer and have a 5% conversion rate, you're breaking even though you could say, but it only cost me $500 to get that customer. Yeah. But it also cost you $500 to get the 95 customers you didn't convert. And so it's like, understanding those metrics are so important.
Well, let me give you a script here on this. Let's turn the corner, get tactical. In the chat for me right now, okay, everyone who's Nolan's taking an appointment right now, which is okay. If you got a listing, take the call. Let me know, what is the lowest interest rate you've gotten a client in the last 30 days? Okay. Whether it's through buyer incentives, rate buy down, right? Like, what's the lowest interest rate you've seen? Okay. Julia's saying 5.4. Hey, Nestor, Michelle, good to see you on the call. 6%, right? Derek saying 5.75, 5.8. Hey, Kim, good to see you on the call. 5.7. Okay. So this is great. Joe, what's the 30-year mortgage rate right now? Ballpark?
I think it's like 6.4, something like that, 6.5.
Someone let me know in the chat. What's the 30-year?
Let's see.
I thought it was closer to 7 last time I checked. Joe, you might be out of touch here because you haven't sold a house in a while. Might be
I haven't sold a house in like 8 years. 30-year fixed 7.6, FHA 6.9.
Yeah. Okay. So interest rates right now are Nancy
right around
7.2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'd be celebrating their 6.4. That was September, Joe. So
I'm an optimist by nature.
That's it. So here's where my head's at. You can see here, a lot of people have gotten clients or seen clients get a 4.9, 5.7, 5.9, 5.8, 6%. So if you're a consumer and you go on Mortgage News Daily and you see that interest rates are 7%, or you get pre-approved by your bank and they show you a 30-year mortgage of 7.125, you're like, okay, I guess that's what interest rates are. What I would be doing if I was going to be prospecting today is I would start texting. This is the exact text I would write. Hey, Joe, I just helped my client get a 5.75% interest rate on their home. This was surprising to a lot of their friends. Has anyone sat down to walk you through how mortgage rate buy downs work? Okay. And so I'll copy that and I'll throw that right in the chat for you. Really simple. Now, whether it's a builder assistance or it's a mortgage rate buy down, like, you can use a recent scenario as a way to engage your prospects, to get them to raise their hand, have a conversation. And Angie will tell us right now. Angie, in the chat, how many conversations do you need? And Angie, when I'm saying conversations, I mean people not saying, hey, who are you? What do you want? But like, how many conversations do you need to book an appointment on average?
So while she's putting that in there, Jimmy, I think there's a lesson here, which is, she said three real conversations. She's a monster. I mean, you're dealing with LeBron James here. Actually, you're dealing with Jordan. Don't get me started. So Jimmy, I mean, I think there's a lesson here. So real conversations, maybe 10. There's a lesson here in that every single day, anyone who watches TV or listens to the radio sees idealistic marketing at work.
Yeah.
The most idealistic marketers in the entire world are car dealerships. Because what car dealerships do is they're like, hey, buy a new Nissan Sentra today for $0 down, 0% interest. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like at the end, it's like, like super fast, right? And that super fast part at the end is the qualification and the unique situation that led to the 0% interest. Every
Yeah.
single consumer that walks on that lot who has a 520 credit score thinks they're going to get 0% interest. They
Yeah.
find out that they may not qualify, or they may not, even if they do qualify, they may not want it because of the details. But car dealerships have learned a lesson that real estate agents really struggle with, which is just talk about the best case scenario in your
Mm-hmm.
marketing and advertising. And then you can work through the details of what that means. Because a lot of consumers, Jimmy, may go like, I don't really want to do the buy down. I'm just going to refi in a year because I believe rates will be lower. But at least you've used the principle of a buy down to start the conversation. Am I right?
That's exactly right. And I'll give you a few more scripts that can work right now because again, we're talking about building your pipeline for 2025. But the data that we pulled, because we ran Tom and I worked on this program called 100K in 100 days. It's the largest listing attraction experiment in history. We've now run 4 cohorts of agents through that program. We've generated, I think, around 15 to 16 billion dollars in closed business from that. We tracked it all the way from appointment to close. And one of the interesting things we learned was, and it's going to align with what Angie said, is 11 real estate related conversations equals a closing, not an appointment and a closing. So if you have 11 real estate conversations, that's going to translate into a actual customer who signs a deal and closes with you. And so we got to just be focusing on ways to have more conversations with people. Let me give you another example of this,
And
Joe.
really quick, Jimmy, on that topic, you're saying conversations with people who have shown some interest in a potential real estate transaction, because you've got agents that circle prospect, and no knock on the circle prospect game, but if you're just cold calling people at random, it's going to take a
Correct.
whole lot more than 10 conversations.
A, th- a,
But if
th-
you've
a
got a
thousand percent.
database, if you got a
Yeah.
database of old leads that have come in over the last 2 years, if you can have 10 real conversations with people, then in
Yeah.
reality you could probably get a deal out of it.
That's exactly correct. And a conversation is not something that's that lasts a minute. It's something you're going, 7, 10 minutes. You're qualifying. You're LP mama. You're actually talking to the person about their needs and their wants, and their timeline. My buddy over at Fellow, Ron Young, the founder, shared some crazy data with me recently. He goes, Jimmy, we currently track 35 million contacts in Fellow, 13 million of which have an address. And so we can track transaction volume that happens within agents' databases. He goes, you're going to be blown away when you learn that for every deal an agent gets from a lead or a prospect in their database, they lose 9 more. And I said, hold on, let me just clarify. He goes, yeah. I'm like, you're saying if I get a deal, if I got 1,000 people in my database and I'm capturing, say, 10 of those prospects, that means there are 90 other additional transactions happening with other agents. He's like, yeah, that's exactly right. So these guys have sort of proven that there's so much value in our database. There's so much revenue in our database, but we got to figure out creative ways beyond listing alerts and drips to get people to raise their hand. Now, let me give you another example. This script I'm going to share with you is a script that one of my members of Listing Leads shared with me, who generated 2 appointments, sent this text out to 75 people, 2 listing appointments. Here's the script. I drop in the chat. Hey, Joe, a lot of my clients have been holding off on their real estate plans until after the election. Now that it's over, I wanted to reach back out to you, see if you'd be helpful to discuss your real estate plans. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And what we're doing with this script, this is I'd say primarily for either cold leads that you have been ghosting you or people in your SOI. What we're doing with the script is we're making people who have been holding off feel like they've been heard.
Feel validated.
Feel validated. Hey, like it's
Mhm.
my friend and co-author Phil Jones would say, "Show me that you know me." So by
Mm.
expressing this idea, like, "Hey, it's a lot of my clients been holding off. Yeah, I've been holding off, but now that it's over, they're starting to explore their real estate plans." And that last line is just priming. Looking forward to hearing from you. It's a way to sort of enthusiastically end a text message that gets people to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to reach back out to that individual. And so that script right there is a timely script that you can be using as it relates to conversion marketing to start getting people to have more conversations, more appointments, more deals.
And the beauty behind that is your clients want to know that you're a real person that understands real issues. And so being able to say to them, like, hey, I'm seeing some of this with some of my clients now that the election's over, like it would be maybe a good time for us to reconnect. Like you're
Hmm.
allowing them the space to say, yeah, I was kind of freaked out. Like
Yeah,
I was getting
sure.
13 text messages a day from political candidates. I didn't know people would be rioting in the streets. Like I feel seen now to know that I'm not the only one that was in that situation.
Yeah, and let's keep going here. I'll give you two more. And by the way, Anthony, 11 replies to this exact text. Shout out to Anthony for executing this. 150 cold leads, 65 private clients. Yeah, we can't say the word past clients. Otherwise, if you say past clients three times in a mirror, Sharon appears. So we have to be careful with that. And by the way, Anthony, of the 11 replies, how much transaction volume do you think exists in that? Let us know in the chat over the next 6 to 12 months. And this is the type of kind of daily activities I want us all doing. So let me give you another example
Well,
of
and
this.
one thing, Jimmy, really quick on that, like, don't discount the people who don't respond. Like, even if he only got 11 response out of 150, the other 139 people are like, yeah, Anthony gets it, right? They may
Yeah,
not have responded right then, but he's building some underground level of trust and relatability. Maybe not in all 139, but maybe
sure.
20 of them who didn't respond think, yeah, Anthony gets it. He kind of knows what's going on.
Yeah, in psychology, they refer to this concept as just it's familiarity breeds trust. And
Mhm.
so the frequency in which you follow up, the frequency in which you post, the frequency in which you email, assuming you're providing something of value or at least trying to personalize it over time, just that frequency creates a familiarity with your brand, which then breeds trust. And that's what PLG brands have understood forever, that familiarity breeds trust. That's why they run all these seemingly obscure brand advertisements. They just want you to be aware of their existence. Yeah, 3 to 5 million. Awesome. So one, this is a script that we created based on something that financial advisors like to ask their clients. And I really love this question because it's such a great question to ask to really understand the full scope of someone's goals. Because a lot of times, if I ask you, Joe, hey, Joe, you planning on selling soon? You might say, no, no, not on my radar. Because your definition of soon and my definition of soon may be entirely different. You may think soon's 30 days and you're selling in 90 days. That's like
Right.
that's great. Cool. Let me know. So this script here is like I use this type of technique often, which is I'll drop in the chat so everyone can see it, which is, hey, Joe, there are less than 45 days left in 2024. Have you decided to make a move soon, or are you thinking 2025 might be a better time? And all I'm doing there is trying to gauge, this is LP Mama 101, trying to gauge what their timeline is. Now, I'm using one of my favorite scripts from one of my favorite people, Chris Voss,
Hmm.
who's the coolest guy ever. I met him in person a couple of times, and he just like um, we had him at a curator excellence conference, and he was just a showstopper. But he has this great line, which is this. I can't believe I'm talking about politics now because we're all just finally over it at this point. But he talked about when they were raising money for a political campaign, they were, hey, would you like to donate to the Republican Party or Democratic Party or the Independent Party? And the response rate was obviously pretty low. But when he would call a specific individual who belonged to a specific party, he'd say, hey, have you given up on trying to take back the White House? And
Mm.
that question, have you given up, was
Yeah.
creates such a more visceral or emotional response. And so we're just kind of adding a little bit of a tweak to that. Because I think in this case, if you're going to cold email somebody and you say that, it can come off a little too like aggressive. So I'm just softening it a little bit here. But this is a great text to send to anybody you've talked to over the last 12 months who maybe you haven't spoken to or has ghosted you. Let's figure out what their timeline is and let's go out there and figure out a way to serve them.
So Taylor did this with one of our agents. One of our agents, and I've told this story from stage before, came in and said, hey, all of my leads suck. And Taylor's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. We've never heard that before. Like, let's call a couple. The first lead that Taylor called, the person told him to go F himself. The
Mhm.
second one he called, the lady said, hey, thanks for following up, Taylor. To be honest with you, I'm just looking at this time.
Yeah.
And Taylor said this, guys, hear what I'm about to say. I don't know the lead. Let's say that it was a lady named Julie. He said, Julie, I hear that from time to time. Help me understand what just looking means to you. And she said, I'm probably not going to be buying for 60 to 90 days. And so, like, for the principle is we have our vernacular, we have our, we know what just looking means in the real estate space, which is like 5 years out. But on a consumer standpoint, just looking means I'm not ready to write a contract today, but I'll probably be ready. You know, it could mean 30 to 60 days. And so
Yeah.
I love that you kind of hit that, you know, like, hey, Easter's coming up. Like, are you envisioning Easter in your current home? Or are you looking forward to celebrating in your next one? You know, and it's like you're
Yeah.
asking a question that makes them put a, oh yeah, no, we definitely need to be in something by Easter. You're like, all right,
hmm
well, cool. It's January. We've got two months to get this thing done.
That's exactly right. And building on that idea, we know that 80% of conversions happen after the fifth follow-up. And so today we were in the scenario where many of us are struggle to make multiple attempts, or we get discouraged in the event someone ignores us. And so we don't follow through, we miss out on the vast majority of revenue. The words that the words I never want anyone to be using is like, hey, I'm just checking in, or I'm just following up. It just triggers a part of our brain like, oh, this is just a sales message. They're not really interested. Like, try to lead with something of value. Let me give you an example of this. Or everyone on the call here is part of Real, right, Joe?
I would say 60%.
Okay. Well, even if you're not, you certainly are probably aware of my buddy Sharon's deal of the week marketing campaign that he's popularized.
Yeah.
And so the deal of the week is very simple. You're studying the MLS every day. You identify what you think is the best deal, and then you send out to your database a simple email that says, "Hey, listen, I looked at 75 homes in our market that hit the market recently. I came across what I think is the very best deal. If you'd like me to send the details, just reply to this email." That's kind of the gist of it. What I would do to take that one step further is I would do the deal of the week SOI text. And what I would do in this is a tool to generate referrals. So if I'm Kim, in the chat for us, let us know how many clients Kim's has worked. I've known Kim for over a decade now. She works at Alante Real Estate in the South Shore of Massachusetts. Kim, in the chat for us, let us know how many people have you helped in the last, say, 5 years? Like, how many buyers, sellers have you worked with? And so, Joe, as Kim is typing that, when we work with a client and we deliver a great value, like Kim, I'm sure is a fantastic agent. I know her clients absolutely love her. Just look at her reviews. The challenge is how do we get referrals from happy clients without saying, you know, the cheesy line, "I'm never too busy for referrals," because that just
The greatest compliment I can receive is the referral of your friends and family in their next real estate transaction.
listen. I think Brian Buffini's a monster. I think in a good way. I think he's built an incredible business. But I just objectively speaking, as a professional marketer, I think it's the worst script I've ever heard. And somehow it's been perpetuated as like a good
We've
idea.
all adopted it. Yeah, it's like the
It's
real
not.
estate anthem.
It's not. Just say it to someone who's your friend and see if they laugh. Okay, like someone who you really trust. So what I would say is what I would do. So I can actively see people typing right now, deleting that from their signature and their email right now, Joe. It's
From the
okay.
bottom of their email string.
Listen. It's okay. It's okay. We all have to start somewhere. So what I would do is I would use a deal of the week concept. If I'm Kim, I got 30 clients I've worked with in the last few years who love me, who maybe have referred business to me. I would use that to generate more referrals. And here's how I would do that. I would say, hey, like let's say in this case, Joe, I'm Kim and you're Joe. I would say, hey, Joe, I know you're not looking to make a move soon, but I just came across what I think is the very best deal. And I know you know everyone in our area. Who do you think we should share this with? And you can provide more specifics if you want. You can say, hey, I've reviewed a bunch of homes. I think this one's going to sell quickly. But you're reaching out by saying, hey, Joe, I know you're not looking to make a move soon, but the reason I'm reaching out is because I just came across what I think is the very best deal I've seen in the last 5 days. I know you know everyone, Joe. Like, who do you know who's actively looking that you think we should share this with?
Yeah.
And they're going to start thinking like, oh,
This is like Phil Jones 101 type stuff.
It's 101. It's like, who do you know? But using the deal of the week, this is like we're providing layers here, Joe. Using the deal of the week, which is a fantastic tactic, and using the Phil Jones, who do you know, and just
Right.
creating that sort of like that match, if you will, like Lego stacking. That if you send that to like 5 people in your SOI every week, as an example, you're going to get 2 or 3 referrals from people who are actively looking to make a move every single week. And so what?
Yeah, and I
Yeah, go
just put
ahead.
in the chat, Jimmy, a script that I share with people, which is share a couple of now the difference between Sharon and I is he's not a picture guy, I'm a picture guy. You share a couple of pictures of a really attractive property. Hey, good afternoon, this may not be for you, but I came across an amazing property I believe I can get you a good deal on. We may be even able to get the rate down in the 4s, which is probably the 5s now. Who do
Yep.
you know that, like you, enjoys getting great deals and may be interested?
So it's like you let them off the hook. Hey, this may not be for you, or hey, I know you're not
Mhm.
looking to move anytime soon.
Sure.
But who do you, and then Jimmy, the response rate, at least 25% of the people you know aren't looking to move anytime soon are going to go
Say, yeah.
like, well, I may be interested, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great little hack. I love the idea. This goes back to a good SOP is like you. So how do you identify a great deal? Well, one way to do it is look at Zillow to identify homes in your price range in your farm that have the most amount of views and saves. And I would drive to that house. I would go outside, take a picture of myself with the house in the background, and say, "Hey, I was just actually, checking out the neighborhood for one of this like this hot listing," and I would use that script. So I love that personalization aspect of it using a photo. It just makes it 10 times more impactful. The point is that
Worst case scenario, Jimmy, somebody
yeah,
could literally pull it up on the MLS on their computer and take a
sure.
selfie with their computer
Yeah.
screen and be like, dude, I've been scouring and I found this crazy deal. Who do you know
That's
that maybe?
I love that. That's see, now we're workshopping, Joe. That's a better idea. You don't have to get in your car. You don't have to drive Dunkin' Donuts, go through the drive-through, and head over to the place, right?
See
Like
you tomorrow. Yeah.
see you tomorrow. By the way, I've always been a fan of showing the back end of the MLS because it feels like insider trading to the consumer.
Right. Yep.
Because it's like, they're used to these beautiful designs and UX, but the back end of an MLS, they get all these crazy filters that don't normally show up. So I love the idea of shooting a video like this and then having in the background and pointing to it and saying, "Here you go." I think I think it's brilliant. So, so we covered. Let me just back up for a second here because we're talking about building your pipeline. These are all conversion tactics. I mentioned attraction, engagement, conversion. These are all conversion tactics. So whether it's the election script, which you have a few days to use that one, whether it's hey, we got 40 days left in the year, or the year just started, tell me about your plans, or it's using the first one, which we posted here earlier, interest rates buy down.
Yeah,
These
you
are
can
all,
use lack of competition in Q1. Hey, I'm
yeah.
not sure if you're aware, but Q1's a great time to buy a home because people are still recovering from Christmas, yada, yada. You can use anything.
All of that. And by the way, one of the most we have an email that we sent. It's called the $100 million email because we've tracked over $100 million in transactions from this one email from the people who sent it and sent me back reports on it. And this $100 million email is something that we sent it out at the very beginning. You guys should all bookmark this. Let me just pull this up real quick. I want to show it to you. You should all bookmark this. This email is so good. And it's something that every person here should use heading into next year. And Joe, kill some time as I pull this up for us because I want everyone to have this one for.
Well, I just want you guys to be ready. We're gonna in the last few minutes, you've got Jimmy. In my opinion, the Mount Rushmore, up there with Tom is Sharon and Jimmy and some of the individuals that are just personal mentors of mine as well as good friends and just great real estate minds. Have a question ready that we could throw at Jimmy. He's super good brain picking. I do want to back what he was saying as far as cost of lead acquisition. I did a class last week on that. Like if you don't know your the two numbers you really need to know is your lead acquisition cost and your lead conversion rate, because teams are going out of business and 99% of them that are going out of business are doing so because they track cost per lead and GCI without the important factor of conversion rate. Because I get text messages all the time. They're like, hey, could you afford $3,000 a lead if it closes at 20 grand? And you're like, okay, that's a stupid question, but sure, I could make 17,000. The issue is not how much did you spend to get the closing for that one deal.
the all of the loss. If you want to know why teams are going out of business, it's because they have to pay for the deals that never close.
Yeah.
And so I love that Jimmy kind of got to that.
So cool. Thank you, Joe. All right. So this is the example I'll share so you can see this here, which is the $100 million email. And I'll focus on the top part of it, which is you can send this email either at the end of 2024 or at the beginning of 2025, which is how much equity did you gain in 2024? Or in this case, how much equity did you gain in 2024? I'm setting aside some time this week to prepare equity reports for my clients. My clients love these reports because they're more detailed and accurate than online tools. Can I create one for your home? That's it. That's the email you blast to your entire database. Now, the PS, there's an opportunity to personalize this. Maybe you can say, PS, I just did this for one of my clients and they were surprised to learn they gained $49,000 in equity in the last 12 months. And so you create some type of hook at the bottom of that email to get people to raise their hand. Now, if you're in a market where home values are depressing, meaning if you're in South Florida or you're some of the pandemic cities that saw this huge rise and starting to see a little bit of pullback like Austin, you're just going to make a very small change to this. Instead of saying how much equity did you gain in 2023, it's just how much equity do you have left in your house? That's basically it. And so you can spend a little bit of time saying, hey, in our market, we've seen a little bit of a pullback. A lot of my clients are asking, how much equity do they still have left in their house? I'm doing these reports. Can I create one for your home? So I would, if I was in your position right now and I wanted to build an epic pipeline for Q1, I'm texting everyone in my database using the scripts that we use, cold leads, SOIs, past private clients, etc. And then I'm also sending out an email like this to get a bunch of people to raise their hand. And the big thing I want everyone to take away here, Joe, and it's what Angie talked about earlier, which is conversations equal appointments, appointments equal listings. So everything that we do should be around like, how do I build my audience? How do I engage my audience? And then how do I monetize my audience?
So I am the worst real estate consumer of all time. I've had a real estate license for 24 years. Taylor and I buy homes in like 5 different states.
Yeah.
And home valuation emails work on me. Like I own a property in Parowan, Utah, which is 2.5 hours from here in Vegas.
Sure.
And I get emails from agents that are like, your Parowan, Utah home value changed. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, and I click on it. I can go check out the value myself. I know how to do this. And it still works on me. So if it works on me, it's going to work on everyone in your database that you have an email address and an address for.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Joe.
Okay, guys, we got 3 minutes. So Alyssa posted a link to my YouTube channel if you wanted to see that video I did on the true net commission income, understanding your cost per lead and lead conversion. Does anyone have any questions for Jimmy while we have him? Ange.
I was trying to type it, but I can't type that fast. This is a little off of conversion, but Jimmy, I've been watching a lot of your stuff lately on Instagram, talking about, posts and reels that we've been making. I'm trying a couple. I have one that I'm going to try today. I'll tag you in it. The one that has the questions in it. I'm trying that. Try it as a story. I know that there's a lot of agents that are wanting to build their business off of Instagram rather than get on the phone. And I just want to know if you think that's possible, how many times a week are you having to create content in order to really become profitable off of that? I've just never been able to master that. I probably
talk about influencerpreneurship, Jimmy. Like, is it a good tactic, you think, if an agent goes, I don't like being on the phone, I don't like holding open houses, I'm going to go all in on Instagram? Are you seeing success with that in the industry?
It's such a good question. There's a guy by the name of Sam, who I was going to call him Sam Bankman-Fried because I was just listening to podcasts about FTX. It's not Sam Bankman-Fried. There's a guy by the name of Sam. I'll drop his link into Joe so you can share it, who made like about $135,000 off Instagram last year just through stories. My buddy at Modern Chicago Homes, who sells a lot of real estate, 70% of his business comes from Instagram. The thing I would say about social media in general is there are different types of agents And if you can identify what type of agent you are, it dictates your strategy. Meaning if you're a phone animal and you are a conversion monster, and calling and converting is your superpower, then you should stay in your circle of genius. If you are bad on the phone, and if you've ever said the expression, as soon as they get to know me, they love me. Okay. Well, you probably shouldn't be making phone calls, because they're never going to give you the chance to get to know you. It's like, tell me right now who you are, what do you want? And if you can't break that brick wall down, that's a problem. So there are certain agents who are, I just picked up a place in Boston recently, and the agent I'm working with he's non-social. He doesn't cold call or dial. He's been selling real estate for now 20 plus years. And he just knows everything about a very specific neighborhood that I want to know, that I want to live in. And so he is the SOI master, right? That's kind of he knows the area really well, and he knows everyone. And so therefore working with him makes a ton of sense. So if you want to commit to social media as a channel, the short answer is you most certainly can build a meaningful, substantial business through social media. There are countless examples of agents who are crushing it right now on social media. Like Ken Pozak being one, and he uses YouTube primarily, but sort of same concept. He's built, I think he's going to do $350 million this year in volume, and it's on the back of his Orlando Real Instagram and his YouTube channel. What I would say is, if you're going to commit to social media, you got to commit to becoming a content creator that provides a ton of value. And you don't have to shoot every single day and post reels every day, but you certainly have to figure out ways to say, how am I going to be the one who is differentiating themselves? We did an analysis, Joe, of over 5,000 YouTube videos to identify the criteria that makes videos go viral. Let me just give that to you, because I actually have it right now. There are I'm going to drop this in the chat so everyone has it. These are the 5 content types. There you go. 5 content types. After analyzing, again, a couple hundred creators, looking at the most viral videos amongst those creators, these are the 5 content types that have consistently outperformed other videos. So I would say, Angie, I'm going to land the plane, Angie. What I'd say is, if you commit yourself to becoming great at content creation, then social media can be wildly effective. But if you are just putting one foot in the door and it's taking time away from something you're already great at, then it probably becomes a cost center for your business.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this with Michael Jordan, right? He was the greatest of all time. Jimmy may say it was Larry Bird, but it was Jordan. And Jordan tried to play baseball.
I would not say it was Larry Bird, for the record, okay?
He's a Boston guy. Jordan tried to play baseball, and he was as good, but he wasn't the greatest. And so I think part of the challenge I see with social, and you know, you're just trading work for work. You're trading stress. And so right now, if dialing and calling stresses somebody out, and they're like, man, I just want to create content. It's like, yeah, the first day you create content is exciting. Day number 400 is work. And so, and I do think there is a level of talent on the social scale that is a different talent than is on the traditional conversations, create appointments, create closings, right? Because Brad McCallum is great. Brad McCallum is super talented when it comes to YouTube. He's got a family that's all bought in, and they film together, and he is extremely talented in that. And so then to just go dude, I want to do what Brad does. It's like, somehow we have to evaluate, do I have the talent to do what Ken does? Do I have the talent to do what Brad does? And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because if you're just looking to do onesie twosie deal, that isn't an overly talented proposition when it comes to leveraging social. But if you want to run your business based on social, the 2 things I would say you have to do is you have to understand that it is work. And number 2, you have to be able to truly evaluate, do I have the talent to become that? With that, Jimmy, you do have the talent, man. I appreciate you so much. Guys, we're going to make this recording available moving forward. Jimmy, I appreciate you. I'm proud of you. As much as you don't need to hear that, you should be proud of yourself for what you accomplished with Curator. And I know that the bigger and better things, I mean, you're one of those guys that's going to crush it no matter what you do. So we're excited to see what the future holds.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, everyone. Great call today.